This is a regular meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. Jonathan, can you call the roll?
Yes, Director Brent.
Here.
Director Geis is not here. Director Bertrand.
Here.
Director Freeman.
Here.
Director Hedges.
Here.
Director Nguyen.
Here.
Director Goodwin.
Here.
Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the Chumash people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders past, present, and future who call this place, Anaskoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, I'm going to move to item 2, the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they'd like to pull?
I have a quick question about one of them that will not affect the way that I vote. So I do not feel the need to pull it from a separate vote, but I don't know if that means I need to.
Go ahead and ask the question.
Okay. Are we just like a month behind on those payments? Like, why are we doing the payments for both October and November?
Because they sent me the bills on December 10th.
Awesome. Okay.
And actually, I did have one edit for this, if we could make that.
Okay. Can you explain what the edit is?
It's just the number. I have one of the numbers was slightly off. Give me a second.
Did you have a question?
While he's figuring out the number, if we can vote on December 18th meeting minutes separately, just because I wasn't here.
Yeah, okay. So
And I also, for the two of them.
Okay, so we're gonna pull 2.1 and 2.2. Jonathan, your correction to the number, do you have that up?
Yeah, I do. It's the November one. It should be 247761.
Move approval with a change of 2.5 to 2477.61.
There's been a motion made by Thurlow. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right.
And that's with 2.1 and 2.2 poll.
That's with, yeah, so this is the balance of the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Any other board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absence. All right, now we'll go to 2.2, minutes from December 10th. Does anyone have a motion?
I'll move approval of December 10th minutes.
There's been a motion made by Thurlow. Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Freeman. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0, 1 absent. Now the approval of the minutes of December 18th.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Thurlow, seconded by Freeman. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absence. Okay.
2 abstentions.
And 2, I'm sorry about that. Motion passes 4-0, 2 abstentions and 1 absence. Okay. Now we're going to move to item 3, the board organizational session. The first is the election of the board president and vice president. So basically, I just want to say thank you to the board for putting your faith in me during this past year. I think we've been able to accomplish a lot, and I'm really excited with the direction we're moving. I think this has been a year where we've started to grow into our own, and we're getting through the startup phase. Some of the things I'm really proud of this year, at the top of my list is street lighting, how we were able to complete phase 1 of the street lighting expansion after hearing from students time and time and again that it's too dark in IV and we got to have more street lighting so that people feel safe when they're walking home. I'm really excited that we were able to sign the lease on the community center. That's been something the community has been wanting for so many years, and I'm really excited with the direction that that's heading and all the great programming opportunities that we have when we have our own public space in Isla Vista, which is a really big deal. I've been really proud of the work that our staff has done, both Jonathan continuing with us and Deborah as our newest team member. I think that it's been great, and we've been able to grow our capacity and what we're able to do, and it's been a pleasure working with them, and I'd be honored if the board would entrust me again for another term. I'll go to Ethan.
Thank you. So I was thinking about what it meant for us to have our organizational meeting tonight, and it's really amazing that this is our 4th organizational meeting at this time. The past 3 years have really flown by, but we've achieved so much in that time. In addition to what you've mentioned, we've made great progress on public safety with our CSO partnership with UCPD, as well as our sexual assault investigation and prevention program. With the great programs that have happened in this room, from with the Isla Vista youth projects and all the great work that they've done. The partnership where we're working with United Way to employ members of our communities who are experiencing homelessness to go around and help make our community prettier. There are just so many amazing things that we've accomplished through all of our work together and community collaboration and work with our great staff. So I'm just really proud on this fourth organizational meeting, what we've done. I'll also say I remember a little more than a year ago at our last organizational meeting, Spencer and I went on a walk and stood out, I guess, on the corner of DP and El Embarcadero and took a ceremonial photo of us handing over the keys of the car from my board presidency to yours. And 1 year later, not only are there no dents in the car, but I feel like we're really moving towards our destination of making Isla Vista a better place for all who call it home. So with that in mind, I'm very happy to support another year of your board presidency. I won't make a motion now because I want to hear from everyone else, but thank you for all you've done, and I look forward to hopefully another year of your leadership.
Well, thank you, Ethan. I really appreciate that. I'll go over to Jay. I saw your hand up.
I'm very supportive of Spencer Brandt continuing as president, to the extent to which originally I was going to ask if he was willing to keep doing it, but apparently he's actually asking to keep doing it, so that's arguably better even. Because the big thing that I think has been so great about having Spencer as a president is the extent to which he's just doubled down into doing this. And he's also, for people who don't know, Spencer is one of the 2 people on this board, myself, even the other, that's one of the 4-year electeds. And so we have Spencer for another 2 years, I think. So, wait, is it 3 years? Because it's the end of 2022.
Yeah, so.
You guys are the 6
Depends on how you're
We are
counting. Yeah.
technically now the 6-year electeds due to the yes, due to the yes. So that's so I'm very excited about the idea that Spencer would like to continue doing this, and I would like to support Spencer to keep doing this.
Thank you, Jay. I'll go to Christy.
I'm also very strongly supportive of Spencer being the president. Again, just because this is my first year being on the board, and he was one of the most inspiring and one of the most supportive and taught me so much. And anytime I had a question, you would always be there to answer. You'd always be free if I had anything, if I didn't know anything. And it just made me so much more confident as a woman on the board and as a student too. So thank you. And I support you 100%. All the time.
Thank you.
I also strongly concur. Father Nicholas often says that I never have an original thought, and to a certain extent that's true. As I was considering this upcoming and all that we have accomplished, I thought of how I thought about that old Chuck Berry song. It was a teenage wedding and the old folks wished them well. C'est la vie, say the old folks. It goes to show you never can tell. And against all of the odds, against all of those who said that this wasn't going to work, that our efforts together weren't going to work, it is Spencer et al. That have made that work with diligence that was beyond years and beyond anybody's expectation. So why mess with it? Such a good thing.
Thank you, Father John. All right. I don't know if you have anything, but otherwise I'm willing to entertain a motion. I say, not to put you on the spot, I'm going to go to Ethan.
I move to elect Spencer Brandt as board president of the Isla Vista Community Services District for 2020.
And I enthusiastically second that.
Okay. There has been a motion made by Bertrand and seconded by Hedges. Is there any public comment on the motion? Any further board discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absence. And I want to say a big thank you to the board, to our staff, and to the public. This entire effort that we continue to embark on is not an effort of any one of us on the board. It's us working together, and that's why we've been able to accomplish what we have. So thank you all for your continued support. I want to talk a little bit about one of the people that has been incredibly instrumental on the board, who happens to be not here tonight, which is maybe not the best look. It's pretty funny timing. We were originally going to do this meeting in the last meeting of December when Bob was here. But Bob Geis really has selflessly, I think, given so much of his time and his knowledge on county government and regional services to be able to help us grow, help us navigate structures that we don't always understand. When this board was first seated in 2016, all but one of us had served in local government on a board, and his understanding and ability to help us through some of these difficult things that we've encountered over the past year has been incredibly helpful to me. It's been incredibly helpful, I know, to our staff, and I would enthusiastically support keeping Father John as the vice president. I'm sorry. I'm tired.
Sudden look of terror.
I really don't want to
Looking
get
for
into
X's.
Bob Geis, our vice president, who has just poured so much into this, and I would encourage.
I'll move approval of Bob Geis for vice president.
And I will enthusiastically second that.
There's been a motion made by Thurlow and seconded by Hedges. Is there any further board discussion? Jay?
So one thing, there's actually mirror comments that I've made in previous years, is that I think that one of the things that the vice president position is doing is it's providing an opportunity for somebody to potentially grow more in the position in government and to be able to provide a kind of a shadow position for the president. And so I would like to see if Christy would be interested in taking that position before we just quickly hand it over to Bob. But
Christy, would you be interested in seeking the position of vice president?
Well, I think Bob is so experienced and he's been on this board for so long, and I feel like that kind of position is more well suited for someone who is way more experienced. And so I like the position that I am on right now, but I strongly support Bob as being the vice president.
And I think that Jay's
Well, thank
Jay's comments of development are well taken, and one of the things that I think we've lost a little bit of now that we consolidated the secretary with staff is that there's not that team of three always that we've got, and I think it does allow us in some ways to be able to have discussions amongst ourselves and not just be in the group of three always, brown acting with each other and stuff. However, I think that Christy, I wouldn't sell yourself short if I was you. You have really grown a lot over this past year or so that you've been on the board, and it's been really great and really an instrumental part of us being able to be a board that functions together, makes decisions together, and really it reflects the community. And so, don't sell yourself short.
Thank you.
Is there any other board discussion? Any other public comment? Okay, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0 with one absence. Okay. We are looking forward to a great 2020. So with that, we're going to go to 3.2. That's the board meeting calendar. Jonathan has prepared this calendar for us. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to look at it, but I have. I think that this is right in line with what we have been doing, second and fourth Tuesdays, with the exception of the Tuesday that falls during Thanksgiving week.
Do we need a motion? No?
Yes.
Move approval of the board calendar for 2020.
second.
Motion has been made by Thurlow, seconded by Freeman. Is there any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with one absence. With that, we're going to go to board committee structure. And this is an opportunity for if we wanted to tweak memberships on the committees that currently exist.
Was there a handout on that?
No, there's just a discussion of how you want to continue doing There's only one committee right now.
There's only one committee.
Standing committee, policy committee.
So what's your recommendation in terms of where this discussion should go over the next 40 minutes?
Just discussing if you want any other committees this year to work, I mean, we have the legislative committee, which hasn't started up really yet, and we do a budget ad hoc. And I've heard a lot that an audit committee is also really helpful to have. It's just Bob's the one-man audit committee right now, so those are maybe some ideas.
Well, I think an audit committee is a good idea. I think it'll allow more people on the board to become familiar with that process, which is really important just for our continuity. Director Bertrand?
Thank you. So I definitely think we should start meeting as a budget ad hoc committee again in the near future to get ready for this upcoming fiscal year. And that's definitely something that I would volunteer to serve on again. I've really enjoyed that process. Right now I serve on the policy committee, so if anyone is interested in serving on it who's not currently on it, I'm happy to offer up my seat there or continue to serve on that committee. And additionally, we may want to consider forming a Deltopia ad hoc committee in these next few months, really looking at, well, this upcoming Deltopia, but more importantly next year as well. I also realize that's a lot of committees, so we'll see who wants to volunteer to do what. But I definitely want to be on the budget ad hoc committee again.
Director Freeman?
To the extent to which we're talking about even ad hoc committees, I mean, it's my understanding that we almost set up a business coordination ad hoc committee and then never succeeded in scheduling it, but.
It's hard to get a meeting scheduled, but we can try again with that one if they're so interested. We ended up doing a lot of business outreach and staff work. It worked really well, so maybe.
Maybe we don't need a committee, I just
Yeah.
remember that we had set that up, I had answered a
Yeah,
bunch
no.
of doodle results and then nothing happened, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is suggestions are the audit committee, a budget ad hoc committee for fiscal year 2021, as well as what was the third one am I missing? Deltopia ad hoc committee. So I think we could direct staff to bring us back those in the form of resolutions, since I know that's what we've been doing.
Can I ask that before we form an audit committee, that we really clearly understand what its purpose and its function is gonna be? Because I'm not sure. We should have a finance committee which performs those kind of audit functions, but I'm not sure what an audit committee does. I mean, if you're a bigger organization, your audit committee receives your audit report, which is really important, reviews it, and then makes recommendations to the board regarding the audit report. But I'm not sure that our audit report, but I'm happy if people want to have an audit committee.
I think it would be a good opportunity for us to learn more about the process and to be
What process?
engaged in the audit process.
Well, the audit process is pretty simple. You bring in an auditor and they audit you. And then they present you a report that says this is what we found in your audit.
I feel we'd be able to go into more detail than the presentations we've got in the past from our auditor. We don't have to do it as a committee, I'm not tied to the idea, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over to Ethan.
Yeah, I think that it's fine for us to take a deeper look at the audit in a committee, but I would agree that maybe we can combine the functions of the budget and the audit to have a finance committee. So, and I mean, I think at this point it would be fair to have that as a standing committee. I don't know if anyone else is interested in that, but rather than just meeting half the year, we could add that additional function and have a standing committee to meet as needed.
I like that idea. Everyone agrees? Okay, so, I don't know if we need a motion to direct staff to bring this back to us, or I think they've taken direction, so.
Finance committee, and you want to keep policy committee the same people? That's the only other question. So it's budget and audit, or finance committee, Deltopia ad hoc, and policy committee, but we might need to, I don't know if you all want us to keep that the same or not.
Is anyone interested in serving on the policy committee that's not on right now?
When is the Deltopia ad hoc committee being created?
At our next meeting, when they bring it back, the resolution that explains what it does.
Okay. Is there an empty seat in the policy committee?
No, not right now, but I think a few of us may be happy to bow out if someone is interested in serving.
I'm super interested in the Deltopia ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Good job.
Policy,
Also,
I'm open.
Okay. Very cool. So, then in that case.
we can switch seats on policy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so then I think we've got staff direction. We don't need a motion.
So 3 committees.
Sounds good. Okay. Thank you everyone for patiently waiting. We're gonna move to item 4, public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board of Directors that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided for by law. Do you have any requests to speak? Okay, I'm gonna go to Ariel in the back first and then to Jacob.
Hello, happy 2020. Great to see you all again. I won't take too much of your time. First and foremost, we just wanted to invite the board to our annual lighting and safety walk. It's going to happen on February 5th. We are going to meet in front of UCSB's library at 5:30 p.m. We know you're doing similar projects in Isla Vista. We thought it'd be a great opportunity for you all to come and kind of see how we do it and critique and offer feedback. I know a lot of you frequent the campus. Many of you went to school there, so I know you have a heart for it. We also want to, so that's February 5th, 5:30 p.m. We also want to reiterate Director Bertrand's sentiments on 2019 and moving into 2020, that a lot has been accomplished. We really have appreciated our relationship with the board, both the CSO tents and the Detective Isla and the interpersonal violence investigator. It's been really cool getting to see those projects firsthand and working on it, and our department just wanted to express that we've been thankful for your support, your feedback. When you request information, that makes us do our job better. So even that, like auditing, we've been working with Rob Crew, the CSO director, on better ways to track this data, better ways to improve it. So even the pushback we get sometimes, we love it all. So we just want to say we're looking forward to moving to 2020 with that. And then lastly, I know I've been talking about our team expanding from 1 team to multiple. Jen Roman used to hold this position, and I came in, and now we've gone from 1 person to 6. And so we have 2 people on our team here today. They just want to tell you who they are and let you know that they're going to be around. So I'll start with Officer Gaston.
Hello, Officer Gaston, from a former IB resident, Santa Barbara local, grew up here, been here about all my life since I was about 3. It's an honor to serve in this capacity. There's a lot of familiar faces in the group, so good to see you all again. As Ariel was describing, our community outreach team, we've been trying to get a lot of stuff done, so I'm really happy to talk if anyone has ever questions or requests from me personally. I'm always availing myself for that at that end. Thank you.
And then secondly, we'll go over to Derek. And as some of you know, a lot of people have issues with armed officers, just period. It doesn't matter how nice we are, how many events we go to, or how much we try to smile. And so instead of ignoring that community concern, we tried to address that by creating an unarmed civilian employee position. And Derek is going to fill that. So.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Derek, as Ariel mentioned, civilian employee for the UCSB Police Department. I graduated from UCSB in 2018, have lived in Isla Vista throughout my time at the school, and now I'm here working for the police department. So if there's anything I can do to serve you guys, I'd love to.
Yeah, so that being said, if you have any more ideas for outreach events, we have a much larger team now. Derek is a very well-trained photographer. He offers that, also does music production, which is actually coming in handy, working with the St. George Youth Center on their Welcome to IV project. So we're a pretty creative team. We're open to anything, and we're here, and we're ready to work. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ariel. Okay, next I'll go over to Jacob.
Hi everyone, my name is Gcpd. I'm a founder and director of Isla Vista Compost Collective, and these are my 2 managers. Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, my name is Jake Kaiwal. I'm the development manager. Is it okay if I pass around a little handout?
Absolutely.
I'm Isla. I'm the marketing manager.
Don't read off of it.
Alright, so while Jake's passing that out, I will tell you why we are here today. So we're here today to propose that the IVCSD absorb Isla Vista Compost Collective as a program of the IVCSD. So due to a legal issue behind paying stipends, which I will go into a little bit more detail later on, we had to stop Isla Vista Compost Collective or put the program on pause last quarter, and we are in search of an organization to house us. Alright, so next I'm going to talk a little bit more about what Isla Vista Compost Collective is, and then Isla will talk a little bit about social media, and Jake will go over some of the impacts we have had, and then I'll finish up with the stipend issue, and I'll explain that. So, okay, Isla Vista Compost Collective is a community compost program that services 96 houses in Isla Vista. We have diverted close to 20,000 pounds of compost, or food waste, and when in operation, we divert close to 800 pounds of food waste per week. So the way this works is we provide households with 5-gallon buckets and composting guidelines. We allow them to compost for a week, and then we bike around IV with a bike and a cargo trailer, and we pick up the buckets and bring them to a few different locations. There's St. Michael's Church, there's the Methodist Church, and there's the Estero Park. At St. Michael's and at the Methodist, there are community compost piles there. So a lot of our compost goes directly towards them and is used in the gardens right in front of those compost piles. After we compost, we return clean buckets to all of our households, and we text them. We sort through all the waste, and we text every house what they composted incorrectly and how much weight they composted for the given week. We track all of this in an Excel spreadsheet. So by doing that, we kind of add a little bit of an educational composting twist to the program. Okay, and then we also recently implemented a new program that's tackling food security along with food waste. So for this program, we partnered with the AS Food Bank to pick up non-perishable food from houses. We have the bike and the cargo trailer that we use going down like DP, Sabado, and Trigo. We had a bunch of volunteers knocking on doors asking if houses wanted to donate non-perishable food, and through doing that, like in about 2 hours, we collected 500 pounds of non-perishable food and donated it to the AS Food Bank. And then we have a lot of future aspirations to implement more community-type programs, such as a local composting event service. Okay, now we'll go into just a little bit about social media.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about social media because it's one of the main ways that we communicate with Isla Vista residents. Pretty much everybody's on social media, and it really adds this sort of greater sense of connectivity in our community. So mainly our weekly post would consist of a graphic photo communicating how many pounds of food we've diverted from the landfill, and then, excuse me, sorry. And then after that would be a picture of our compost competition winner, which we run weekly as well. And that is pretty much the house that composted the most compost per person. And we're able to figure this out through an Excel spreadsheet we use to track all of the house's compost weight and what was composted incorrectly, as Jacob mentioned. So we post pictures of that, and I think it just adds a greater sense of efficacy to what we're doing. It really puts faces to people in your community who are composting, and really we give people directly through something that they're on every day, the statistics of how they're helping the community. So recently we've been running student spotlights as well. So we did a photo shoot and took headshots of everyone in our committee, and we've just been they've been doing little interviews, and we've been putting them out on social media so that as they're biking around and picking up compost, people know them and they're like, oh, those are the people who work at IVCC, and they're doing so much for our community. So we're just kind of trying to bring a better sense of community to who we are, and we're also reaching out to other programs, as Jacob mentioned, with the AS Food Bank. We're committed to producing more interactive content and also interacting with people on campus. So we produce a little highlight reel video for that. And so basically I think I just want to talk about it because it's important that people feel like we're a part of the community and that we're really here to serve them, and we want to continue doing that for as long as possible and as well as possible.
Yeah, thanks. If you guys would look on the fall 2019 status report, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. My position with IVCC is started out with really just looking at the data that they collect. And so this is a little bit outdated, but over 7.4, I think Jacob said over about 8 tons since 2018. We have a wait list of over 90, and that's growing. People are really wanting to be a part of this program. And this is previously served, because we're a little bit on hold right now, but it was over 500 residents. And one of the things I really focused on was looking at like the kind of impact that we were actually having with this. The EPA has a waste management model, and through this we're able to kind of see that we've prevented the release of over 5.4 metric tons of CO2 equivalent into the atmosphere. This is just because composting kind of holds on to that carbon, and we're able to produce something that's like usable to the community, and also just really prevent that from being contributing to the climate crisis. And 80% of that, the compost currently, how the program runs, stays in IV. 20% goes to be processed by Marburg Industries. We kind of keep that relationship to see if in the future, as we grow, if we were to outgrow the community compost bins, they would be able to kind of help us out with that. And with this kind of tracking of the data, we're trying to maximize our efficiencies and just kind of minimize the cost of the program too. And we've seen that as we expanded to the 96 houses, we were able to do that. So we just kind of hope to keep doing that as we're tracking this stuff.
All right, and then I will finish up with the stipend issue that we ran into. So again, last quarter we had to stop the program. We have ran the program by paying stipends to all of the dirt riders. They are the ones that bike around the community. So yeah, in the past we paid stipends, and then we found out last quarter that you're technically not supposed to be paying stipends to those that are doing shift work. So we had to move away from this model, and now we're looking to find a model where we can actually pay hourly wages. So that's the stipend issue. And then I also just want to add that after meeting with like numerous stakeholders, such as like Katie Maynard, Mo Lovegreen, Dip Poe, and many other people, I can talk about meetings if you'd like me to, but we determined that in order to continue to operate the program, there's really no other option than to pay hourly wages and not do stipends. Yeah, I mean, and then I also should just mention that we had met with Spencer and Jane to talk about this. On Friday I met with Jay, Katie, Maynard, and Matt Freitas from UCSB Development. Yeah, that's it, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna go, quick question from Ethan.
Awesome, thank you. Well, thank you all so much for what you're doing. It's really impressive. Since it's not on the agenda, we can't really discuss tonight, but I do have a clarifying question, which is currently, or up until last quarter, where was the funding coming from?
Coastal Fund has been like the large funder of the program.
Thank you.
Great. I'm gonna go to Jay real quick.
So my interest here is I would like to see this agendized for a subsequent meeting, so we actually can have a more in-depth discussion. I think that this fits in with the discussions that had been started 4 years ago now. No, just 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago now. On the idea of us taking over the solid waste power, or potentially maybe we could figure out a way to fit this into our community facilities power. This is something that I think we now can finally look at again based upon the discussions we had at our last retreat, combined with the fact that we are now, as Bob's been saying, a going concern, which satisfies the concern from 3 years ago with relation to us potentially doing that. This is an example of a local, innovative, progressive approach to a problem. So,
you're really good at keeping us all off agenda, non-agendized.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna close the discussion, but I wanna thank you all for coming. The mission that you guys have to serve Isla Vista residents in a way that combats climate change and is serving the community is just really inspiring, and I love the work that you've done, and I'm very excited we're gonna have this on our agenda to have further discussions, so let's keep the dialogue going.
Thank you.
So if it is agendized, Jonathan, will you make sure that it's completely sort of vetted, budget, what the ask is, and also whether or not it should go to a committee first?
We're gonna work with them to bring something to the board that's thorough.
Okay.
And but then I'd want to have a discussion before we do it. If we want to say, okay, do this or not, so we'll have enough to make that decision.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
thank you.
Ethan?
Sorry, and I just wanted to make one brief comment for our first public commenters, UCPD. It's really cool to see you expanding your community policing team. I know for When IV Foot Patrol was founded in the 1970s, it was really a model for community policing for the 20th century, and I'm really excited to see how Isla Vista can really be the model for community policing in the 21st century. So thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other requests to speak?
Hello, we are representatives from Vista. I'm not sure if you are familiar with us. We are a community-based project, students and non-students. I myself am an alumni, based on bringing a greater sense of community to Isla Vista and increased ecological sustainability. And we have 2 project proposals. We have full funding for them. We just really need the green light at this point. And we realize that this has to be agendized and all that, but this is just the initial spiel. So I'll talk about, if you want to talk about the second one, I'll talk about the first one. Okay, so the first one, big thing for me, and also deals with the climate crisis, is that grass is the single biggest use of land, water, and pesticides of any crop in the United States. We have a lot of parkways in Isla Vista that are grass. And I myself am a permaculture designer. I've studied at CC. I have 2 other designers in consultation. We've looked at the parkway up front of Sueño Park. There's already an oak tree there, but we want to take this as an example. We could also work with something smaller initially, but this is going to be the running start. We have 15 volunteers. We want to sheet mulch the entire area, use hugelculture to install berms, make the soil stronger, and plant fruit trees, because half of the students in this community, half people in this community, are skipping meals on the regular according to UCSB's Environmental Studies program. And planting these trees will not only sequester carbon, but also will reduce food insecurity in our community. We have full tools, funding, volunteers, everything's ready to go. We just need the green light. And do you want to talk about the festival?
Yeah, so with Vista, we imagine a festival that would take place in the park. So the goal is really to party in a more meaningful way, and also to create a sense of community in IB, and more importantly to raise awareness on like climate issues, because a lot of students don't really know how to get involved. So we want to make Vista known thanks to this festival, but we would also have all the other UCSB environmental groups tabling there, and we want to promote the artistic skills of IB students, with only IB students performing music or exhibiting their art. Yeah, what else?
I just want to add in, so we got, like I said, all the funding. We've already worked at plans for the trash management, waste management, security. We worked at plans for local artists, musicians, and we want to have actually an educational workshop to show that you can have fun and party and also learn things at the same time. And we've been working on the power issue. We have pretty much everything ready to go. We're not asking for money, just the green light, like I said.
And we would also like to plant a tree.
Yeah, we'd also like to plant a tree at the end, commemorate and increase food sovereignty,
Yeah,
security, sustainability, all that good stuff.
Symbolize the first edition.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. This sounds like a really incredible vision, and like you said, it's not on agenda for us, but I would recommend, there's the Recreation and Park District Board,
Okay.
and I believe that they probably hold the keys on approval to both of these projects.
Okay.
So we can definitely, Jonathan, if you can put them in
He
touch.
emailed me last night, so we're gonna get together.
Excellent,
Awesome.
that's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's your hand over here. Okay. All right, are there any other requests to speak in public comment? Okay, with that then, we are gonna move on to discussion and action items. Item 5.1, the lighting work group. Consideration of formation of a lighting ad hoc committee and selecting the members to serve. I know we were just talking about committees a second ago, but really I wanted to take this opportunity to give a little bit of an update on the lighting that we've heard from Santa Barbara County Public Works. Phase 2 of the implementation of the preliminary lighting expansion program is delayed until around, I think, mid-February is what Director McAlpin said. Apparently there is a shortage of mast arms, which are the arms that attach to the telephone poles and hold the light fixture across America. So it seems like a pretty unforeseen circumstance, but that's what they've heard from Edison, and I'm confident that it's going to move forward. I'm really happy with what we've seen so far with the additional lighting that's been put in, and I think that what I want to do now is move forward with trying to come up with lighting solutions that maybe aren't as traditional as just the street light and the mast arm. I think there's a lot of opportunities for things like infill lighting, which Bob and I have talked about a little bit to the board. It's one of those things where the biggest thing that we learned from this experience, I think, was just how we basically work with an imperfect campus, because most of our lights are attached to light poles, telephone poles. And those telephone poles are not placed at distances that are ideal for the street lights. And so I think we'd like to explore with the county and with Public Works some additional ways that we can do infill street lighting that involves downlighting. And we have an allocation in our budget for lighting specifically. I was really happy that we didn't have to use any of that money and that CSA 31 ended up funding the previous project. But I think that there's an opportunity for us to do some more on this, and wanted to take the opportunity to create a working group. So I know that I would definitely like to serve on this working group. This has been one of my passions, and I'd open it up for other members of the board that would like to join as well. Jay?
I'd be very interested in serving on this working group. I've had very strong opinions about the quality and like specific details of the lighting relating to environmental concerns, health concerns, et cetera, over the course of the last 5 years that I've been arguing with the county about it. So.
Is there anyone else who'd like to?
I'd also like to serve. I went on the lighting walk with Joan, and I thought it was really informative, and also living down on 677 for Trio, I'd bike back and forth, and there was no lighting, and a lot of my friends and a lot of people that go to UCSB always complain about lighting, and it's something that I would like to work on too.
All right. Well, that's great. We have 2 other folks that would like to serve. I think we have 3. I don't know if anyone else on the board wants to serve, but I think this will be a good group, and I'm excited for what we can come up with. The board will support it. So I would entertain a motion if anyone has one.
Do you want us to bring back the resolution with all the other committees?
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. I forgot that we usually appoint ad hoc committee by the president. So we will have staff bring back the resolution for this work group. And yeah, I think that's basically it for this item, unless there's any other comment from the board. Is there any public comment on lighting? Great. All right. With that, we're going to move on to item 4.2, the Isla Vista Community Center furniture and equipment discussion. I think we have an attachment in front of us that is the budget that we received at the last meeting. Jonathan, is there anything you want to add to this from Deanna?
No, just that there's no changes made since the last meeting, so she said that she wants to continue proposing this budget for funding for equipment and furniture. This won't count though the board chairs that we'll try to get that are more comfortable for your 4-hour meetings.
I was gonna say,
but those will be separate from this purchase. We'll do that directly.
What do you need from us tonight regarding this?
So if it's up to the board, if you want to consider allocating from our equipment and facilities reserve to fund this capital expense.
Ethan?
Does our management staff concur with this request? Have you been able to speak with the youth project since our last meeting, and does this would you recommend this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked to them and we've reviewed it. I think overall this is the budget we'll need, and so they've got a plan for using all this. Maybe we'll have some less trash bins and maybe a little more tables or something like that. It'll be a little wiggle room within this, but this is gonna get us a lot of what we need. They do have more though, so this is a phase 1 request. We asked if they wanted to add all of them into one request. They said this is the priority to get done, and it makes sense. This is the basic stuff we need for the community center and the community room. But yeah, they'll come back with more. So keep that in mind in approving that. But our reserve is about 40,000. I think it's maybe 43, and they'll be asking for potentially more for other things like AV equipment maybe, or some other ideas we're throwing out there.
Got it. And then just one follow-up on that. Has this been before the Community Center Advisory Committee yet, or no?
No, they're meeting on Thursday. So,
So I'll move approval of this budget, with Ethan's point that this also be vetted with the advisory committee.
okay, so kind of let it be pending their review, or just have it be brought up to them.
Yeah, well, let's approve it,
Okay.
and then if they have any questions, we can always bring it back, right?
Yeah, we don't have, like, just because we approved it doesn't mean we have
No.
to spend the money.
Yeah, that's right.
I think there are two things at play here. The first is that in the future, I would like to see this request go through the Community Center Advisory Committee. I also have strong feelings of the urgency of needing to attain this equipment so that we can have a functioning building, and I am respectful of that.
Yeah, I did suggest that in the future we do that, but they do have requests for the building. So we've seen some of the in our meetings, like, people are requesting use, and so yeah, it's good to get.
So that raises an interesting question. How is this purchasing actually going to occur? Do we buy this all from my brother-in-law? And will you provide, will you provide a certain amount of oversight as we go? I mean, I don't wanna be nitty-picky, but still.
Yeah.
When we're talking about $5,000 worth of furniture, we should, just at least be careful about who we're buying it from.
Yeah, so once you approve it, I'll work with them. We cannot make the purchase directly ourselves since we don't have a credit card or anything like that still for the district. We need 3 years of audit financial. Soon we'll have.
Audit committee.
But we'll ask them to, make
So
the
who is
purchase.
that?
IB Youth Projects.
So IB Youth Projects is gonna purchase this and then we're gonna reimburse them?
Yeah, and so I'll work with them before the purchase is made to just see, this is the list, here's the final amounts for
Right.
everything, and make.
So are we really clear, Ross, about who owns this?
From the sounds of it, IB Youth Projects is gonna own it.
Well, even if we're paying them to buy it on our behalf.
We'll have to have a transfer of the property, like some type of an agreement.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
can
we've
we
never
make
done
sure
it.
that's buttoned down,
Yeah.
because that seems like a loose end.
Maybe let's put that in the motion.
Yeah, and
That
I'll
we
move that we
understand
have
it's owned by the CSD.
a legal agreement in terms of the ownership of this property.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
so
think
maybe
that's
that'll
very
be at the
important.
next board meeting, we'll have
Okay.
something like that.
Okay. So then with that said, we would include in the motion, direction to staff to bring back the transfer of property agreement, is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, purchase agreement.
Purchase agreement, okay.
And I'll second that, and as Jonathan's typing it up, I think it's awesome to hear that we are getting those requests for use. I know there was a first event this weekend, and it's really exciting to see that come online and this be back in session, so excited to see as much use as possible.
Transfer of property.
How was the event this weekend?
That was really positive. We had a lot of participation from county organizations that were there. I know it was cool for me. I got to meet a bunch of people in different departments. A great conversation with our folks from Public Works who've been helping us with lighting, so.
Great.
Okay, so I think Jonathan's typing up the motion, word for word. Can you read it back to us once you're
Yeah,
finished?
motion, we just worked on this, motion to approve $10,370 for equipment and furniture for the Isla Vista Community Center, and direct staff to bring back a contract for reimbursement and transfer of ownership to the district.
Okay.
And also to solicit input from the Community
Oh,
Center
yes.
Advisory Committee.
Okay, I'll put that right after community center with input from the community advisory board.
Cool.
And
I'm sorry, Mr. President. This issue with the Community Advisory Board, what is it that they're going to be doing?
well, so my point on the Community Center Advisory Board was more that these requests should be run through them prior to going through us in the future. that they should have had a chance to look at this.
So is it contemplated that there's going to be some type of review and approval by that board before staff does what we've been given direction to do, or? I'm just making sure that there isn't some type of contingency about the community advisory board taking some type of action.
In terms of this motion specifically, that's not what my intention is. I don't know.
Yeah, my intention is just to hear from them for their thoughts on the furniture and equipment needs at the start of the community center. So more the broader topic. So just getting the discussion started now, and if they have feedback to send back to our next board meeting, or
So maybe that should be more just we're directing staff to get their input, but we're not asking them to review this or in any way hold it up.
Well, yeah, we can get their input on what beyond this we
Yeah,
need,
I think that's
maybe
the way to go.
particular chairs.
Well, and just to say, we needed to take action on this right away because we need to get this going, but in the future.
Because the reason why this is important is because this is the board that is empowered by voters to act on behalf of the voters.
Yeah,
So,
I wouldn't want anything in the motion that made it seem like it was contingent upon their approval. This is,
Exactly.
we're voting on a funding request.
Exactly.
In a separate category, we are also asking their input on equipment needs.
so I'm comfortable for us to take that part out, if the maker of the motion is, and just for staff to follow up on getting their input.
Yeah. Director Freeman?
I think this has been said, but I think just maybe to clarify again, I felt like part of it was just that in the future, if something like this is gonna happen, to bring it through just to direction of staff, who in mind bringing it through the
Yeah, and
community
then
center
be a
advisory board,
recommendation
not that it
instead.
absolutely must be.
Okay.
And who made the motion? Was it George?
There's Thurlow and then Bertrand. Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, any further board discussion? All right, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absence. Okay. With that, we're gonna go to the general manager performance review discussion, and we have a policy, I believe, in front of us.
Deborah will be the staff report on that.
So before you have a outline, based on our discussion from our December meeting, but I would call your attention to the last page of the little handout that I gave you, which really outlines our need to determine whether we're going to continue to look at a 360 performance review, or we'll look at a standard management performance review process. I think what my recommendation would be to the board, when that opportunity is available, is that we not do the 360 performance review, because we really don't have capacity for that. Because you're looking at input from several sources, and we would really have to identify those sources. We'd want to get input from the GM. His current agreement is that he have a performance review at the end of his, 1 year, but there's no definition or methodology outlined there. So we could do a simple performance review with recommendation or reviews completed by members of the IVCSD, the board, not necessarily, someone from United Way or someone from IVYP. We'd have all those different sources if we did the 360, but one of the things I'd have to warn against is the strain that would put on the relationships that we have with those that we collaborate with and partner with. Again, those would be anonymous, so we wouldn't really be able to go back and give direct input to the employee under review, so that would not be beneficial. Then there's the cost and time factor. If we do a single management performance review, we can say it's gonna be done by these 2 individuals. It's a done deal, simple form. We deliver it to the employee. That employee gets input, feedback, and we're done with that. Ross was kind enough to send me some materials that they have used in the past. I can do a simplified performance evaluation review form for your consideration. We can then talk about who will complete that and how that will be delivered.
I'm gonna go over to Jay and then George.
as the person who had brought forward the feedback that I received from a couple community members about doing a process that was as complicated as this, I personally am perfectly happy accepting Deborah's expert opinion in this regard relating to her experiences working both in HR and knowing how our staffing capacity looks like and saying that, great, whatever she says.
George?
Let me follow that up and just say, so what is your recommendation? And can you make that in the form of a motion?
Oh,
That I
think
can,
I can.
no, you can't.
He wants to give you, he wants you to tell him what to say.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That we complete the performance evaluation, the annual performance evaluation for the general manager, with the input from board members, designated board members. I would suggest not more than 2 board members, that those members be agreed upon amongst the board and with the general manager's concurrence. We use a simple format where we relate to the employee whether the performance is unacceptable, acceptable, or needs improvement.
I totally agree with that, and I'm gonna make that motion. I have a question about what concurrence of the general manager means. Are you saying that the general manager essentially has veto power over who can perform the review?
No, I'm sorry. Concurrence was then not the appropriate word, but we would want to advise the general manager that these are the individuals that will complete his performance review. So he has full knowledge beforehand.
So I will make a motion that we have the president and the vice president as a committee of 2 perform a performance evaluation with, after soliciting input from each one of the board members, as well as any other community or stakeholders that they feel would be appropriate.
I would second that.
Okay, I'm gonna go over to Ethan.
Perfect. So I like the direction we're moving here. My understanding is with the Brown Act, we couldn't have 2 of our members soliciting feedback from board members.
Through staff?
So what we could do is you could do a closed session where everyone gives the input. of
Right.
Right, so, if I could, this may answer the question. Implicit in what the assistant general manager is saying is that that's kind of the initial evaluation, the back and forth. Ultimately, any type of action in terms of a performance plan or a raise, merit considerations, all that has to be made by the board as a body. And there is a provision under in the government code that allows the board to have a closed session for that specific purpose of evaluating an employee. So after the committee of 2 has the initial kind of evaluation, I think it's contemplated that comes back to the board for the full discussion under the auspices of the Brown Act and what's allowed in closed session.
Yep, that sounds great.
Perfect.
So I look
That
forward
sounds
to-
great to me too. Okay.
That's a wrap then.
All right, is there any further board discussion on this? Any public comment? Okay, with that, we'll go to a vote. I'll just say first that the 360 performance review, I think it was Jay and I think Bob mentioned it at our last meeting. It's an interesting idea, but I think there's that's something that we don't have the growth of an organization for yet at this time. But if people do have feedback for us, we are open to it as well, members of the community. Okay, I'll call the question.
Can we hear the motion?
Yeah, motion to direct the president and vice president to conduct a performance evaluation of the general manager with input from board members and other stakeholders they feel appropriate.
So a legal question, Ross. So as this process unfolds, it should be 2 members of the board, president and vice president, that initiate the process and do the process, and they should not be soliciting input from other board members.
That's correct.
During that process.
Correct.
Until we go into closed session.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we were all clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other board discussion? Okay.
So with that, I think the motion probably shouldn't have that dependent clause with input from board members.
Yeah.
That suggests that there would be those discussions, which, as Director Thurlow has pointed out, would be a Brown Act concern.
So with input from stakeholders, they feel appropriate.
Right.
Yes, I think
Not
that's more
moving
appropriate. Okay. Can you read it back to us one more time?
Yeah, direct the president and vice president to conduct the performance evaluation of the general manager with input from stakeholders they feel appropriate.
Okay. With that, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absence. Okay, I'm looking forward to that process. Okay, we're gonna move to item 5.4, the Goleta Valley Library Board Trustees update. Director Freeman is a member of the Goleta Valley Library Board Trustees, or is it advisory board? I'm not sure what the
Yes,
title
actually,
is.
technically, that's actually part of the background that needs to be understood is that originally we were going to have a Goleta Valley Library Board of Trustees. But the City of Goleta's City Council realized that a Board of Trustees has power. And we were actually sent explicitly an email describing the fact that when they realized that we would have power, they did not want to give us that power, and figured out over the course of an additional month or two how to structure an arrangement where the City Council would be the Board of Trustees and that we would merely have an advisory commission. So I am on the Goleta Valley Library Advisory Commission to the Board of Trustees, which is in fact the Goleta City Council. The Board of Trustees had originally, the reason why the Board of Trustees was going to get constructed at all was because of some push from the county. So when you look at the population of people that the Goleta Valley Library is supposed to serve, Isla Vista is a very large number of them. I think we actually might be the majority. We are apparently, though, the majority of the funding. And so the county provides a, I should remember the number, I don't, but I think it's about $7 a person, maybe $7.50 a person to Goleta's, City of Goleta for the Goleta Valley Library. And the idea then was that a Board of Trustees would get set up with 5 people on it, that the majority of them would be people who are outside of the City of Goleta. We would have a representative from Isla Vista, and then there'd be 2 representatives from the City of Goleta. What we actually have is this advisory commission to the City Council acting as the Board of Trustees. Now, what this is, the part of the background then on this is that was that particularly satisfying to the powers that be with relation to the goals in the county for us having this Board of Trustees? The county budget hearing cycle is going to be starting up again in another few months, and the idea had been that the Goleta Valley Library would then provide back to the county process a needs assessment for Isla Vista, which is part of the reason why we had people from the Goleta Valley Library show up at our meeting doing what they were calling these hardwood conversations, and that this process then would make the county feel comfortable with the fact that so much money is going to the Goleta Valley Library on behalf of residents of Isla Vista to make certain that they feel that we are actually being served appropriately. And if not, maybe something more drastic ends up happening. Now, when I got put on this advisory commission, I had a meeting with Allison Gray, who's the library director there, and I kind of got the feeling like we were going to get a lot of busy work, and that is in fact what we've been assigned. We now have a mission statement for the library, which is something that we were assigned over the course of months to work on, and has been provided to the Goleta City Council for the Goleta City Council for review. We came up with finally the Goleta Valley Library is a welcoming, family-friendly center that provides multicultural and multi-generational learning for our diverse community. It offers physical and virtual materials and programming and actively partners with other community agencies to support the joy of learning and foster civic engagement. Next, we will be working on a logo. Now, I have at various points poked it.
Are you asking us if you can be excused?
No, actually, no. The reason why this is on the agenda, as far I believe, was because there was a conversation, which actually also Spencer Brandt was part of. There was Spencer, myself, Jonathan, and Joan and Gina from the county, and about the idea that I should actually be pushing harder on the idea that something needs to actually happen. And so I've been bringing up for months now. So one of the things that I found frustrating about our library is that the more I learned about libraries, library fines are something that are kind of considered passé. They're actually considered something that mostly hurts the people you most want to target with the resources of a library. And we are now at the point where we are one of the few remaining libraries in our system that are actually collecting these fines. I have now every meeting for the last 4 meetings requested that on the next meeting we have an agenda item to discuss removing the fines. And that is to continue to be pushed to potential future meetings because we have to get this mission statement, logo, et cetera, complete. Between
You
Luann-
look really good on TV. You can catch Jay on TV.
So Luann Miller is also on on this board, not as a representative of Isla Vista, but caring a lot about Isla Vista and having sorry, not Luann, sorry, her successor, Lori
Goodman,
thank you.
yeah.
Same position with subsequent person. Lori Goodman is on this as as somebody who cares a lot about Isla Vista and has a lot of connections with Isla Vista. And we occasionally will bring up like what the status is of Isla Vista, and the status has been that these hardwood conversations continue. And so there was hardwood conversation that was done with us. My computer very slow, and there we go. The Isla Vista Elementary School parents have now been given a take-home survey as of November. That was supposed to come back in December. My understanding is that we were going to be getting the results of all of this sometime in December. We still have not heard about when that might end up happening. And now I'm getting pushed from the county on the idea that, well, the budget hearings are coming up in April, something has to happen quickly. And so I think the reason, I'm not the person who asked this to be on here, and so when I saw it, I was like, wait a second, why was it? Oh, that's right. I think the idea here is to get a feeling from the rest of the board that you're also interested in this getting pushed harder, so that when it is me there, it is not just Jay being annoying, saying that something has to happen, but that I have some backup from our board. Although the way it's agendized, we can't take action to direct me to do anything like that. Although I'm also not serving on the board, however, at the discretion of this agency. Anyway, I think so.
I don't think so.
Well, I was recommended there by us, but I'm not. I think it's. Can you pull my? I don't know. I'm trying to come up with processes by which it makes sense, but like, yeah.
So we can't do a motion? Can we do a motion that?
So
I don't know if we're agendized to do a motion since it's
It's just an
update
update.
related, but
maybe
I
discussion
think
on
we should
yeah.
discuss our feedback, because I know that I certainly, I think, feel the frustration that Jason, well, I don't know if I can feel quite as much frustration as him, because I didn't have to give input on a mission statement. But,
It's
I mean,
painful watching.
I mean, but the core of this conversation to me is that there's a part of that mission statement you came up with that says actively partners with other agencies to provide these services, and we are an agency that's authorized to provide library services. Isla Vista generates around $180,000 for library services, and we've never had a library in Isla Vista. We've had small services and little things that they try to do to check the box off, but we have given our feedback as a board, and other groups in the community are starting to as well, of what it is that we'd like to see for Isla Vista. And Jay brings up a good point that we were told that in December we were gonna have the results of the Harwood process. It sounds like we're still waiting on that, so you know, I feel frustrated, and I definitely concur that you should push hard and try and, you know, bring this issue up, because I think that I get the feeling that there's a certain amount of people on their staff that may feel that all of the folks who live in Isla Vista are already serviced by the UCSB library. But we've heard time and time again, number one, that not every person living in Isla Vista is a UCSB student, and that number two, the Goleta Library is very hard to access from Isla Vista. There's no public transit that runs into that area, and you know, we need to have a space in Isla Vista that is for us. So I appreciate your work on the board and sitting through those meetings, and I also appreciate your work on this fine issue, because I think that it is a little surprising that they're still one of the last libraries that hasn't eliminated fines. I saw a hand over here from Ethan.
Yes.
Go to you.
Well, thank you for this report, and I agree with everything you said. I'll start off by saying I have really high hopes for library services in Isla Vista. I think we have a great need and an exciting opportunity. One thing I'd recommend is that our staff reach out, and with you coordinating, to have the folks from the Galita Library come to our new community center and come see potential for perhaps programs over there. And then lastly, I'll also mention, as far as I remember, you actually are the official representative of the Ivy Community Services District to this committee. The Galita City Council included at the last minute a reference specifically to the Isla Vista Community Services District. So you are our appointee, and
Cool.
I think you're doing the right thing on our behalf there, so thank you.
Any other feedback from the board or discussion on this?
I honor your staying the course through that troubling, inefficient use of time at the start there. That's not really a clarifying mission statement, that's an obfuscating mission statement, at least from my observation. And I appreciate your emotion in this, your passion that you're bringing to it. It's just.
The last thing that I would add that we haven't brought up yet is that State Assembly Member Monique Lamone was able to secure $200,000 for the purposes of an Isla Vista library. I think under the assumption that there already was an Isla Vista library that existed. But nevertheless, that money is somewhere in the state budget, and it is available for usage in getting this started. So we have a lot of opportunities to do some great stuff. And I would really, love to jump at those opportunities. And so, we've talked a little bit with the State Assembly Member's office, but I'm not sure if all of the staff that I've spoken to have been super clear on exactly what the timeline for that money is, or whether it's going to be allocated to the city, where it's going to be allocated to. So it's something to think about. Okay, I know George is in the bathroom, but I'll open up public comment. Anyone have discussion or comment on libraries? See some folks that are happy that they're not in the library right now, not quite midterm season yet. Okay, well then with that, I think we'll close the discussion if no one has anything else. Thanks for your service, Director Freeman, on the Library Advisory Committee, and we'll be looking forward to more updates. Okay, we're gonna move to item 6, reports. We're gonna do reports from members of the board. Does anyone have anything to report? Director Freeman?
This will also probably kind of coming up on the general manager report, but so I'm also on the Local Agency Information Commission, and at our last meeting, we were getting a summary of work that has been done by the commission over the course of the last year, which was categorically not a summary. It was an exhaustive discussion of every single agenda item that had been covered by LAFCO, and followed by where we would be going this year. And I had a memory that there was discussion over that there was something that was supposed to happen, that LAFCO was supposed to actually be looking at us and including us in some process. And so I asked about that, which then caused a flurry of conversation during the meeting relating to something supposedly in the law that I could not find either before or at that point, that in fact they were supposed to conduct a municipal service review of our district within a year after us obtaining the tax. And it turns out that this is actually the mistake that I've been making this whole time, is that there's the state law that put into place our district. And the state law then delegated the responsibility for actually putting together a resolution to the county in order to file the paperwork that set up the election, all that stuff, to LAFCO. And that LAFCO actually put together a resolution with extra requirements that were relating to our powers and the work that LAFCO would then end up doing that is somewhat difficult to find on their website, because they don't really have the results of their meetings on their website. They mostly have the agendas for the meetings on the website. But there is a paragraph in the resolution about our district: if the voters approve formation of the district and the levy of the utility user tax, the commission will schedule a municipal service review for the district to be heard in March 2017, or 1 year after voter approval of the utility user tax, whichever date is later. At that hearing, the district shall report to the commission what powers are being exercised by the district and which powers are not being exercised. Any powers not exercised by the district as determined by the commission shall become latent powers. which is a somewhat concerning premise sentence of the negotiating position to go into with LAFCO and the process of this. So we have the 8 powers that were designated as active powers in the LAFCO resolution, and to the extent to which we are not able to demonstrate that we are currently exercising them, LAFCO has stated the specific intention in the resolution that they shall become latent powers. And they are correct that this was in fact in the website. I've been looking at the laws, not the resolutions, which was my mistake this whole time. So this has now been, and at the same meeting, Paul was making it sound like he had been actively trying to contact our district in order to get information for the municipal service review, and Jonathan was digging through trying to find such communication. It does not seem like we actually maybe had gotten any, but Paul asked for my help in order to connect him with Jonathan, which has now happened, and now we started getting this information about what's actually going on and why. My concern here is relating to the fact that maybe the extent to which there's a power that we've not yet exercised, we can get something on our agenda for next meeting in order to look into some minimal exercisation, that's not right, of such power. And I'm also, but that said, I will state that the municipal service reviews are an opportunity in order to look at what services are being offered in a community and what potential powers should be being offered by various districts. And so to the extent to which we are interested in activating powers, this can be an interesting avenue to begin that conversation. Municipal service reviews are classically looked at as, incorrectly in some weird way, as something that is a district by district aspect, but the way that the law is stated is the municipal service reviews are just, and this is something I went to the Cal-LAFCO conference last month and spent a lot of time panels and talking to various people, that the municipal service reviews are really designed in order to support the discussion of active powers and spheres of influences for various districts. And so the municipal service reviews are designed to be something that is an exhaustive look at how different types of services are provisioned in an area, whether that service is being currently provided by the county or by a district or by, in some sense, no one. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that, Director Freeman, and I'm sure that we're going to have more from Jonathan during his report. Any other members of the board have reports? I'll just give a couple quick updates. I've been in communication with Justin and Juan from our Isla Vista Foot Patrol about some ideas on how to enhance public communication from the sheriff's office to residents of Isla Vista. I know that Justin and Jonathan had the opportunity to meet today and talk a little bit more about the mechanics of that and getting the word out about incidents both that are timely and other safety-related information through different channels such as social media. We're going to prepare something for the board to agendize and review in the future, and I'm really excited about that. It's been something that we've heard from the community at a number of our meetings that there's room for improvement when it comes to law enforcement community communication, and I think we've got a good group of folks in law enforcement on our community outreach teams that we have and in these positions that get that, so I'm excited to see what we can do. I also wanted to highlight, I've sent a letter supporting the Metropolitan Transit District's grant application that they're submitting this cycle. The part of the grant would serve what's called AB 1550 communities, of which Isla Vista and UCSB are considered one. It's a program under the state cap and trade law that essentially gives grants to underserved communities, of which we're the only one designated along the South Coast. One of the things that they hope to use the grant for is for electric microtransit in Isla Vista and serving UCSB. UCSB and Isla Vista is the lines serving us are the only ones in the county, or not the only ones, but 2/3 of all the rides that happen in the county that are at capacity and growing are the lines serving Isla Vista. So there's a need here. We have a population that likes to use public transit, and I think that this will be a big thing to help increase their capacity if they're successful. So wanted to highlight that. I was excited to attend the first event in the Isla Vista Community Center. Every time I go in there, I get a little happier because I just think it's such a great space. There's so much. It really seems to me like it, in a way, is a blank canvas, both for what it can be physically and just, I guess, emotionally as a space. And so was really excited to see our resource fair, and we got a bunch of groups in the county together thanks to Supervisor Hartman's office for coordinating that. And that's my report. Any other reports from the board? So we'll move on to reports from committees. Do we have any? I don't think we do.
Policy committee did not meet this last month.
Okay. Report from district council.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since the topic came up, I figured I'd provide a little bit of context. I think Director Freeman did a very good job of explaining some of the interplay between LAFCO and municipal service reviews and spheres of influence. And I think something that's a couple of things are very important for the board to keep in mind as this information is being communicated by LAFCO. The purpose of a LAFCO is to make sure that government services are being effectively and efficiently provided to the communities within that county. All LAFCOs are organized on a county basis. So, LAFCO doesn't have a jurisdictional boundary that is separate from the boundaries of the county of Santa Barbara. Their job is to make sure that government services are being delivered to taxpayers effectively and efficiently. In the early 2000s, the LAFCO law was rewritten. It was updated significantly because there was a report put together by a committee of the legislature that found that there were all of these special districts all over the state that weren't active, but more importantly, were active and not effectively and efficiently providing government services. They didn't have any oversight. People weren't being elected to boards. There was keep being appointed over and over, with no elections taking place. And the takeaway is that the government services, the taxpayers' money was being squandered. It wasn't being used effectively or efficiently to develop and to deploy government services. So the LAFCO law was rewritten, and it's what's in the government code, what we look at right now. So their job is that. How do they go about doing that? Well, they developed what are called these spheres of influence. The government agencies that are acting within these counties, within the boundaries of these LAFCOs, what are they doing? How are they doing it? What types of services are being provided? And how are people being benefited by the delivery of those government services? Do people have access to water? Do they have access to trash? Do they have access to electricity, etc.? Are all of the basic services that a government should be providing being provided by the government agencies within its jurisdiction, which is, like I said, the county? Well, it goes about doing that by what's called a municipal services review. It's a little bit of a misnomer. You think municipal and you think cities, because it's not just cities. I'm fond of telling people there are 482 organized, incorporated cities in California. There are 58 counties, and there are over 4,100 special districts. Special districts in many places offer the basic services of government that people would not have but for the existence of special districts. So a LAFCO is supposed to look at how those special districts and the county services and the incorporated cities are providing services to taxpayers. The municipal services review is the method by which the spheres of influence are developed. And a sphere of influence, its purpose, it says it's right there in the law, it's a planning document. The sphere of influence is created to show long-term trends in the development, in the growth of population, and how services might be needed into the future. So when the board is considering how best to engage with LAFCO when they're talking about deactivation of powers, it's important to keep in mind that it's not terribly efficient necessarily for a unilateral decision to deactivate a power of a special district that was created by a specific state statute and then turn around and say, well, you can just reapply for it later if you decide to use it. There's a question there of whether that constitutes an efficient delivery of government services. Another aspect is that the municipal service review process contemplates not only active delivery of services, but also future or planned delivery of services over time. A planning document that only looks forward 1 year is not a very effective planning document. So a sphere of influence update via a municipal review contemplates periods of time 5, 7, 10 years in duration. LAFCO's job is to exercise oversight to make sure that the people's money is being spent wisely, and in coming up with a sphere of influence determination for this area on a smaller scale in Santa Barbara County on a larger scale that is most effectively carried out on these larger types of timeframes. So they will most likely be looking at how are the delivery of services contemplated now, but also in the future on these types of timelines of 3 or 5, 7, and 10 years of time. So just because the IVCSD is not immediately supplying a government service, one that is empowered under a specific state statute to provide, the fact that the district may be in the process or have concrete plans for doing so on those types of timescales that LAFCO may be looking at is contemplated as sufficient for what the purpose of the municipal review process is in order to update the sphere of influence, which is a primary, and some would say the only real concern that LAFCO has moving forward. So,
Russ, can I ask a clarifying question?
Of course.
So this definition of a municipal service review that you've explained to us and how it has to do with planning for the future of efficient provision of services, is that something that's codified in the statute, or is this your description of it?
Government Code Section 56430, subsection A3, the municipal services review spheres of influence, and the commission is supposed to conduct a service review of municipal services. A3, present and planned capacity of public facilities, adequacy of public services, and infrastructure needs or deficiencies, including needs or deficiencies related to sewers, municipal industrial water, structural fire protection, any disadvantaged unincorporated communities within or contiguous to the sphere of influence.
So then my follow-up is that it seems, and I guess I'm going to try to phrase this as a question, does it seem to you like LAFCO having passed a resolution saying that it's a foregone conclusion that they would like, it's their intention to deactivate powers that we are not currently utilizing, is not necessarily in line with that definition that you just read us?
Sure.
I'd have to do a full research because a lot of these government code sections are interdependent or they reference other code provisions. But my understanding of LAFCO's law is that they cannot, without some sort of due process, deactivate a power. So to say that there is a resolution that says if you don't use a power and the municipal services review finds that you're not using it, it is automatically deactivated, I don't think is consistent with what the government code provides. That this municipal services review is supposed to generate a report, and from that report recommendations can be made, and then those recommendations have to be vetted in public by the board for public comment, and certainly there's a question about one limited government entity, LAFCO, being able to summarily and without any due process afforded whatsoever, strip another local government entity of a power that has been granted by a specific provision of the government code pursuant to a specific enactment of the state legislature.
I guess, you know, not that we ever, I think, thought we were off on the right foot with LAFCO, but it seems pretty difficult if they've already sort of, or their previous board has expressed the position that they want to take away our powers before even doing a municipal service review. And I wasn't aware of that specific clause and how specific.
Can we reread it for George's benefit? May we do that?
Point of order, I think maybe if we want to bring this back as a future agenda
Yeah,
item.
answering the question,
Sorry,
happy to do that.
I don't mean to get too far off with my clarifying questions,
Yeah.
but.
So I think the summation from where I'm coming from, I think it's important for the board to know that there are processes set forth in the government code that if some type of a determination is made that comes out of the MSR, the Municipal Services Review, that has an impact on the sphere of influence, there is a process that's provided for, and I will be working with Jonathan to make sure that LAFCO follows all of the procedures that it's required to follow and keep the board updated accordingly.
Okay, thank you, Rose.
That's it for me, thanks. I think that was more than that.
Were there any other clarifying questions
Yeah,
on Russ's?
I just had one. You know, my immediate reaction to that was sort of this anxiety that, you know, we need to establish placeholders for every power quickly within the next 24 hours, or else the LAFCO troops are gonna come in and take them away from us. And, you know, there's kind of that sense that's there. But it doesn't really sound like that is the when you take the whole law altogether, everything that's been stated.
I think, to be clear, a lot of this is because LAFCO hasn't been very clear in putting in writing what it is that they're looking to do.
Yeah.
So there may be a certain level of supposition or concern that's not necessarily based on an intent that they actually have.
Yeah, and they
But
had,
I
they
am
had a
informed-
review to do, and they didn't, all of a sudden they're showing up to do it, dummying up we tried to get in touch with you, it's,
I'll turn it over to the general managers. I think that he's actually received an actual letter from them that
Fine,
details some
yeah,
of what they
yeah.
might do, which might clarify their intent and help the board
Yeah.
understand.
Letter dated today, by the way, not in the past at any point. Here's the title of the letter. I think it goes from there, which is Municipal Service Review to Determine Active Powers of the IVCSD is the title. And then it says, Dear Jonathan, as we discussed yesterday on the phone, the commission is required to determine the active powers of the Isla Vista Community Services District. This requirement is contained in LAFCO Resolution 1507, attached as Exhibit A. 1507, by the way, was passed before Measure E passed, 6 months before that. And then it goes and says the powers of the district shall be funded by utility user tax and lists our powers. And then it says, it pulls the thing that Jay read about what is gonna happen with the MSR. But then it ends saying, please respond to this request for information at your earliest convenience. I have scheduled this matter for consideration by the commission at the February 6th meeting, so that's coming up very soon from now, 3 weeks from now. Therefore, I would appreciate a response no later than Monday, January 27th, 2020. And that's the whole letter, so it doesn't really tell me what he wants from me, like respond to this request, just say received.
Who's the letter from?
Paul Hood, the executive director there. So what he told me over the phone what he wanted, which he said he'd put in writing and he didn't, is a summary from me of what we're doing as a district. And, but not anything clear. He told me, I don't want you to spend an hour on this, just like quick outline of what you're doing. And then we're gonna determine what's activated and what's not, and we'll deactivate it. And then if you want it back, you can reapply. Those are the words he said to me. I want to put that on record. He's like, if you're not providing it, and I tried to reason with him. I was like, well, it's been 1.5 years since Measure R passed. It's not that long of a time to activate or to start providing full levels of 8 different powers with one person, recently 2 people. And he was like, well, then staff time might be your restriction, and that's why the power gets deactivated. And so that's where I'm at. So he wants it by January 27th, our board meeting January 28th. I'm sure if I turn it in on January 29th and we had an agendized discussion, we review what I produce, I don't think anything's gonna happen over that. But his letter pretty much says February 6th. He originally told me March 5th would be like the 2 meetings from now. But now he's saying, I just got this letter right before the meeting started from Gina. He didn't send it to me directly. So I just got this.
Oh, you weren't CC'd on it?
No.
I'm sorry, 'cause I got CC'd on it
No,
actually from
didn't.
Paul.
I didn't.
You were CC'd as a board member.
Yeah,
As
as
a
a
commission
member.
member.
Yeah, but Gina forwarded it to me. So that's my big thing that I will report to the board. So Ethan, I guess I'll answer the question while we're.
Thank you. I'd like to request that we schedule a special meeting, perhaps next week, to speak at length about this and talk about a lot of the great work we are doing, and put together our best case, and also be very critical of this process.
Yeah.
Okay.
And let me add to that, Ross. Obviously, you have to be here.
Okay.
And maybe advise, I mean, it's not agendized, so I don't know what we do here in terms of whether or not we need you to respond to this letter right now.
I think right now, given that it just came in, I'll coordinate with Jonathan. I'll read through the letter. If it cites to legal authorities, I'll look at that. I'll put together my analysis, and I think that will guide how the special meeting might proceed.
Okay, so was that a motion?
Motion to request that special meeting, but based on what you just said too, even if we need to agendize a special meeting, just with a brief item to direct our council to start working on this, even before a chance for us to have that in-depth discussion.
I don't think we need that at the direction of the general manager.
Okay.
Ross.
And at this point, you're not in a point where you're considering anything. Simply your request is made.
Okay.
The discretion of holding a special meeting rests with the president. The president will act upon that accordingly. The general manager coordinates with me. Obviously, you know, I take direction directly from the board. I don't, you know, quote, work for the general manager, but it is our common practice that when these types of things come in, I get them, I review them, I coordinate with him on how best to present the information to the board. We will follow that process with this as well.
Thank you.
So is there do we need a motion on this?
No.
I don't think we
Okay.
need a motion.
But we'll get a special
We'll-
meeting
But
set.
can we,
We're gonna schedule
can we also make sure that that letter is forwarded to the board
Yes.
as well as made public?
Yeah.
In other words, it's a public document.
Yeah, we'll attach it to the next meeting
Okay.
about this. That's the best way to make it public. So that's my update on LAF though. There's other good things happening.
That's a good thing.
So the Ivy Community Center, the lease is officially signed and executed. We have the keys and the insurance is going, and so that's pretty much a done deal. So now we can move forward with more confidence and ownership over what's going on there. Deborah's working on the concrete floor hitting seal so that we can have that, and now we're just in the mode of let's start using it and figuring out how we want to have this building. The census 2020, the effort is starting to build. The interns are designing a pretty large campaign to let the community know about the census and working with other groups in the community. But Arabella, who's our new intern, who we've hired, we have a 4th intern now, she's going to be taking the lead on this, and so she'll be working with the other interns and our census complete count committee, which includes different people from property owners to UCSB organizations to other community groups to get the word about the census out. But there's some information at the back table, and there'll be constant information in here and the community center just for passive people as they come in so that they know that the census is coming and the details. And one thing that's been asked of us to do is to pass a resolution in support of a complete count. That's what the county asked us to do, so probably just put that, we'll just say we did that and say we want Ivy to be counted. Justin and I did meet this morning about the social media intern, I think is what you're calling it, something like that.
Something like that.
I think
Community outreach coordinator,
yeah,
maybe.
okay, that's even better. And then, so I think the timeline will be sometime in fall, so maybe it's something we consider in our budget process to put in for next year. Deltopia and Sunfest, moving that to IV, it's great progress. So Katya got the green light today at senior officers to work with us on making that happen. And so Spencer and I are meeting with Lucidity tomorrow morning as well to see what role they might want to have. They pulled out of having the main role, but we're kind of see what kind of role they want to have now. So things are moving there, and so I think by the next meeting, we should have a good update for you. But the idea, I don't know if I mentioned this at the last board meeting or not, I think my meeting with Katya was the 20th, right at the end of the year, but we're moving toward doing something in Anniscoyo, moving the Sunfest event to that park, and then basically that'll be our experiment pilot, and we'll see how that feels for 2021. Mediation program, we have sad news. Brandy Redmond, our mediator, had to resign, and so she needs to move on to a different kind of job. And so we're gonna need to look at a revamp of the program at this point, since it's gone through a couple different versions, and now that Brandy's not being able to be with us anymore, we can look at how we wanna operate this differently. But this is the one program that's in Deborah's camp, and it's not the one, but this program is in Deborah's camp, so she'll be working on that. And then me and Deborah did come up with a staff work plan, so we're gonna be focusing our goals and our work on the board's directions and goals, and we've got a plan for each quarter, like this quarter and through June, through the end of the fiscal year. So we're working, trying to stay very focused and direct in what we do compared to what the board's direction is. We got two great suggestions at the community resource fair for community center use, which is a pet clinic at the community center, and then a compost collection there too. So that might tie into what was presented earlier about the compost being collected. The county asked us to make the community center the point in the community that you can take your composting. You've got district emails now. You guys got my email about that, so you're official. Let me know when you've transitioned to that one, so I can stop emailing your .csd one at Gmail to. I mean, it's still a Gmail account, but it's going to be at IVCSD.com. So once you're ready to make that your primary, let me know, and I'll start emailing that alone. And then some upcoming things, budget process is gonna come up soon, GAN limit, coming back to the safe parking issue. The community garden is gonna be re-asking for another grant, employee health insurance, and then transfer of the building at the Ivy Community Center. So these are things coming up in the next couple months for you to be aware of. That's it.
Spencer, can I ask that we agendize at the special meeting, the Deltopia? Not to add too much to that, but seems like we should be continually addressing that.
Is there a urgent need to have it at the special meeting, or would having it on the 28th suffice?
No, 28th is fine.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that report, Jonathan. As we can tell, we have a hefty workload for the new year. Okay, next is future meeting dates and agenda items. We want to schedule a special meeting, and I just want to, we don't have to do the scheduling now, but we do need to do it sometime next week, so Jonathan will communicate with us.
Yeah, I just want to ask really quick now, since we have you all here, would something like 6:30 next week work still, like we usually do, like a similar time next Tuesday?
I'm just available
I
all
think-
weeks.
I think I have on my calendar the 21st at 6 PM, but there's a point in time count training in this room.
And we have the vacation on Monday's the holiday.
Monday is a
So
holiday.
that's gonna throw
Monday
everybody
is a
off.
holiday.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, should have my city college board meeting next week too. Okay, we'll figure something out. Maybe we'll do it after the point in time count training, and it'll be just a 7 to 8 meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
Or
So
we can do it, what time's the other item?
It's at 6.
I have it on your 6 to
Why don't we go
7:30.
4:30 to 6?
Can you make that
I'll try. Next Tuesday?
next Tuesday?
Yeah, it might be a little later for me. I'm scheduled to be in trial starting that day, but court's usually done about 4:30.
Of course, then it's okay, usually, so.
So what we'll do is keep your eye on your inbox and your fancy new emails, and Jonathan will provide us with some times.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Okay. Other than that, I see a hand over here.
One more agenda item request for a future meeting, not necessarily the 28th, but sometime soon. I saw in the Independent that People Self-Help Housing is planning a supportive housing project for Isla Vista. Perhaps Director Hedges knows something about it. I haven't seen anything other than in that article, but I think it would be great if we have them come here to present. I know permanent supportive housing is so important throughout the county, and we're really trying to make a lot of progress on our homeless situation regionally, so Ivy doing its part is so important.
Yeah.
I think that's a great point and a great
And that
request.
is the count.
Okay, any other public comments or board discussion? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Made by Freeman, seconded by Nguyen. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0 with 1 absent. Thanks, everyone. We will see you next week.
Jay, who's behind you?
We're gonna be like the Joker.
Got a little.
Hey, how are you, Dan? Good. This is interesting. This is my first IVCSD meeting. I just wanted to see what it was like.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. We didn't take actually, yeah.